Good morning. I am Kyle Jeremiah with Burning Issues here on WSIA Staten Island. Joining me today is Ken Sabolska to discuss the state of Staten Island's economy and his role in spearheading a new initiative to promote growth. Recently, President Barack Obama had signed declaration for federal support for Staten Island in the aftermath of the terrible snowstorms that took place over the last couple of months. In addition, we've seen small businesses are increasingly being closed down due to a contracting economy on the island. Right now, I want to ask you, Ken, what exactly can you tell us about Staten Island?
Well, there's a few different statistics. We've done a lot of research on it. For example, depending on where you research it, between 34 and 46% of Staten Islanders fall into upper income brackets, interestingly enough. These are also the most deal-prone segments, people that like to save money. There are nearly 500,000 people living here, more than 2 computers for every home. There are 200,000 local computer users here. And with 70% of the homes built prior to the 1980s, we know there's a large population of homeowners here as well.
Due to the economy, do you see a change in the percentage of homeowners on the island?
Well, definitely. As you said, it's a contracting economy. Prices are sliding. That's definitely nobody knows where it's going to end, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And on the business aspect of things, what can you tell us about Staten Island's community of shoppers?
Oh, well, actually, there's some. Let me just start by saying that Staten Island has some interesting attributes. On the one hand, it's big enough. It's a big enough market. It is a bedroom community for Manhattan. Like I said, there's nearly 500,000 people living here. It is large enough to have its own cable network. On the other hand, though, it's a small enough market that there hasn't really been a lot of serious attention paid to it in terms of marketing studies. The only way we're able to ascertain some statistics from it is from things like census data and from taxation tables. The small business market, let me see, the total retail sales were estimated at about $5 billion in 2008, which had nearly doubled since 2001. And almost 80%, well, just talking about how much small businesses spend on advertising, about 80% of small businesses are known to spend about $100 a month on advertising, which is probably all they can afford. Go ahead.
And do you think, by and large, that the reason for small businesses suffering is because of their inability to pay advertising costs, or do you think it's just the backlash from a generally bad economy?
That's a good question. I think it's probably both. Definitely, the small businesses are really at a big disadvantage in terms of advertising because they just don't have the time. Most people that have owned small businesses are too busy running their business to really even investigate doing, what they really need to do to get the word out about what they're doing. I think that they pretty much well know this, and definitely in a contracting economy with people spending less. They've got a lot of things stacked against them at this time. But small businesses are historically at a disadvantage in terms of advertising.
So tell us, how exactly can the Staten Island economy be revitalized, re-energized?
Well, it's well known that, the internet has come about in the last 10 or 15 years. And as recently as 2005, one study said that something like 87% of small businesses hadn't yet even used the web to sell their products or services. The big retailers obviously went gung-ho with it, but small businesses, 87% of small businesses hadn't even used the web to sell their products or services. And a Jupiter research survey found that just about 36% of small businesses employing fewer than 100 people had a web presence. Definitely using the web would be one way that that small businesses could amplify and magnify that the people know about them and will go to them and frequent them, that kind of thing.
So do you think technology and the use of the internet is the main factor in jumpstarting the economy then?
I would say definitely the efficiencies that can be realized on the internet are, it will amplify anybody's activity. You're seeing all kinds of things happening with IPOs and, small companies that ballooned into huge national and international enterprises in just a few years. Small businesses have this is a way for anybody to take what they're doing and put it on a national or international scale level.
Granted, the internet might be a successful platform. What can businesses do if they simply can't afford to advertise online?
Well, I mean, one of the things that eyesonretail.com is offering is it's a conduit for small businesses to place their distressed merchandise on our site and get that out to thousands of viewers. Things like that. There are all kinds of tools that are coming about. There hasn't been a lot of successful ones yet. I mean, everyone's kind of trying different ways. But, we have one, my company, eyesonretail.com, is attempting one variant on this, which is for small businesses to be able to offload their distressed merchandise. So that's one avenue that we're pursuing.
Is that the only avenue?
One of the things that is astonishing, I mean, every day I read in the papers, there are so many ways that people are trying all kinds of new things. I mean, definitely, I would recommend to anybody, small businesses, if you've got the time, definitely, read, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. I mean, there's just so much going on. The Wall Street Journal has tremendous coverage. There's so many innovative new things happening. I mean, I've read so many examples of things like, companies successfully using Twitter that amplified what they were doing and turned it into national enterprises within a few months. I mean, it's just definitely exploring these tools and ways that it can help you, and being aware of what other people in the marketplace are doing would be the way to go.
And what about up-and-coming entrepreneurs? What advice would you give them to be able to be marketable, to be able to compete in today's market?
Well, definitely try new things. I mean, if you've got an innovative new idea, definitely the tools and the technology have never been cheaper or easier to deploy. You can slice and dice this and try different things.
With me is Ken Sabalska of eyesonretail.com. We take a short break. Stay with us. So, on the question of the Staten Island community of shoppers, could you tell us more about the cross?
Yes, definitely. On the whole, Staten Island is pretty much noted for being a prosperous community. Depending on where you research it, between 34 and 46% of the island falls into upper income brackets, which would be above $60,000 a year household income, which also happens to be the most active, quote, deal-prone segments, people looking for deals and bargains. There's a large number of what is known as cross-channel shoppers here, people who research products before purchasing them. And again, there are nearly 500,000 people living here, more than 2 computers for every home. There are 200,000 local computer users here. And also, it's a well-documented fact that about 70% of the homes on Staten Island were built prior to the 1980s. So we know there's a large population of homeowners here. I just wanted to say something about cross-channel shoppers. Forrester Research first coined that phrase, cross-channel shoppers, which are shoppers who research on the internet prior to making a purchase. And about 46% of Staten Islanders are well above the magic 60,000 K household income threshold, and more than 32% of the Staten Island cross-channel shopper communities fall into these parameters. The average age is between 43 and 45, more female than male. Average income is about 64 to 70,000. Average household size is about 3 people. 36% to 42% have a college degree. About 40% have broadband at home, and between 57 and 71% make purchases online in the last 3 months. And the amount spent online in the last 3 months has been about $300 to $350.
Last year, at the close of last year, New York state economies lost over 22,000 jobs. Do you think the state should also utilize online advertising to generate private sector jobs?
I definitely think that the government should do everything that it can to encourage these technologies, to do anything they can to seed. I mean, there is the Small Business Development Corporation, which is Staten Island has its own branch of this. I think they're in most local communities around the state and around the country. They help you to write your business plan. They'll help you to obtain financing. They kind of give you counseling and ideas about how to market your product. But I definitely think that the state and the government need to do a lot more to encourage entrepreneurs and small businesses to go for broke and to try out their new ideas and do what they can to see to it that it gets funded if they in some way, or to encourage, let's say through taxation or whatever, to make this more palatable and more possible. As I said, go ahead.
Have you engaged in any form of consultation or conversation with local merchants? How do they feel about the idea of advertising online?
Okay, actually, very interesting. I've encountered a number of different things. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, going about on foot, usually on Saturdays, to small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses around the island. I've had all kinds of responses. It's kind of like the internet itself. There's always a riot of responses. Some people have been very enthusiastic here. Take more photos. Please take more photos. We want to get this out there as much as we can. Other people would chase me away with a meat cleaver because they didn't trust what I was doing. And definitely, I've had one merchant a very high end guy who told me, he says, first rate companies are not going to want to be on your site because he said that I don't want people coming into my store looking for distressed merchandise. But on the whole, I think that most merchants kind of recognize the value of what we were offering in terms of putting out their distressed and discounted and clearance merchandise on our site.
I see. So generally, the feedback you've received
it's been very positive overall. Definitely. I mean, most people. I mean, I've had a couple of people that were really, really enthusiastic. This is great. I can't wait to use this. Sign me up. Do it right now. Free advertising. Wonderful. It's been very enthusiastic on the whole.
Mm-hmm. What is your projection of the economy's growth if small businesses undertake such an initiative?
I definitely think that this is going to help everybody. We're looking to create jobs here. Definitely have to, like what I'm doing. EyesOnRetail.com is definitely a small. It's a small cause that's going to. We hope that this can balloon into a much larger enterprise, and I definitely think that the internet has the potential to for everybody to amplify what they're doing and. Definitely what I'm doing, I feel could be a part of that. As I said, we want to create value here. We want to create jobs. I think people recognize the value of what we're doing. So, the idea is just to get the word out there and get people to use it and check out the site. And, definitely other internet products that other people are coming up with. I mean, there's new ideas being hatched every day.
But I guess the success of all of this would depend entirely on the purchasing power of the consumer, right?
Yeah, well, as I said, I'd say one of the interesting characteristics of Staten Island is that it tends to be a very prosperous economy, a very prosperous group of people. But definitely, I would say, from what I've seen out there, that these are definitely challenging times. I mean, every time Wall Street takes a hit, Staten Island really reels from that. I've seen it myself on a couple of occasions, a couple of downturns in the market. But I think it's going to come back as it always does, and I think that the growth will be there again.
What about online social networking forums such as Facebook and Twitter? How do you think online advertising forums would fare against competition from forums like this, which seems to attract attention from most everyone in today's society?
My feeling, I mean, from what I've observed, all these newspaper articles that I've been reading, is most companies should jump on board with this stuff. And actually, there was an interesting quote that somebody said that it said people should feel comfortable getting in, putting out their services and their products out there for people to comment on and to engage in social networking. People aren't doing that enough.
So do you think that companies would opt to go for the cheaper alternative, i.e. Twitter, Facebook, as opposed to a company that would... it really depends on what you can afford, what you have time for. These things this is a hard thing for a small business to really engage in because, as I said, they generally don't have the time to do this. What I've observed is that it's usually the children, the sons and daughters of the people that own the businesses that are able to start get them off the ground with Facebook, Twitter, and getting their sites built and things like this. Most people are not that tech savvy. Mm-hmm. But in a highly technological age, in order to foster competitiveness, do you think that businesses should?
Definitely, absolutely. You've got to avail yourself of every possible tool, and every quiver in your arsenal. You've got to use every tool that's available to you. And definitely, as I said, this is something that enables you to leverage. Using this technology is like you could mushroom into like a much larger enterprise if you use it, if you play it successfully.
You yourself work with a website. How do such websites reach out to the public then?
Well, such as I'm doing now. I mean, getting out there and getting the word out. I mean, we have an intern working with us who's been doing social media marketing for us. He's a social media marketing consultant. We need to, we're always on the lookout for talented, sharp people who can help us to grow in this manner. I mean, as I said, I'll tell you something. I just read something very interesting. It said that it was saying if you have to resort to using traditional marketing methods like newspaper, print advertising, or getting or television advertising, it says especially for a website, that must mean, well, I mean, he said in this term, he said you must suck, because he said you really want people, you want this to grow virally, you want people to hear about this and use it and show their friends and spread that way. So social media marketing. Social marketing, word of mouth, world of mouse.
I like that world of mouth.
All of these ways. That's how you really want to grow. I mean, and that's how you can amplify what you're doing and what's the word? Accelerate. Any kind of marketing campaign can be exponentially accelerated if you use these tools successfully.
Mm-hmm. You just spoke of an intern. What is your view on the role of the younger workforce in re-energizing the economy?
Well, I'll tell you something. This is definitely something that needs to be said. I mean, I know that for me, using this intern, or having an intern work with us, he's been like a bridge, like an interpreter to the modern world. Because I'm always asking him, well, why are people doing this on Twitter and Facebook? How do they do this? Why are they doing it that way? And he's always giving us. He says, well, it's because of this. It's almost like it's like one link from one generation to the next, and he kind of intuitively understands all these tools, and he's been using them for years. So. The Wall Street Journal and the New York Times have a lot to say about interns, and that they can have a real impact on an operation, contributing to important projects and bringing a fresh perspective. Definitely, one thing that an employer, I know that I would look for in an intern would be the ability to multitask. Let's say to write a paper, take an online course, instant message your friends all at the same time. Those are the kinds of skills, the ability to manage a tight schedule effectively. That would impress an employer, and obviously being tech savvy, the young people today are growing up with this. In fact, I remember speaking to this young woman, as who we were interviewing, and she says I grew up, with MySpace and these things. She says I've never known a world before this existed. So young people naturally have this advantage. And definitely another reason to really seriously consider an internship is that employers are much more likely to hire you if you're already working, because the assumption that's built into that is that you're perceived as already having significant value. It's much harder to land a job if you don't have something to show for, if you're not really employed currently. I mean, that's well documented. And also the ability to stand out in today's job market. I mean, internships can be a successful conduit for a young person to think outside the box and to try something different, hook up with people that are doing unique things. And another thing is that, I know for a fact that recruiters are surfing blogs to unearth job candidates. I mean, the old-fashioned thing of rubber stamping your resume and sending it out, that just doesn't work anymore. Young people who are social media savvy.
So you suggest young people should probably start blogs and
yeah, definitely. Everybody has an online identity, and definitely a blog is the single best way to control that,
Okay, any closing thoughts?
Well, definitely our goals, definitely for my website is to get people to know about and to use the site. Eyes on Retail, we want eyesonretail.com to become a household name. And, for people to use it every time they go shopping. We also want to enlist this this audience of people that are known as market mavens. These are people, everybody kind of knows somebody like this. Somebody that, you go to, let's say your aunt, she always knows the cheapest place to buy a down coat or even a can of tuna or whatever, anything. These market mavens are very, very sharp and very, very, very alert to what's going on in the marketplace. We want to kind of engage these people. And let me see. As I said, we could probably use a good social media marketing intern on our staff, or interns, definitely. Closing thoughts. Well, I definitely am very bullish on Staten Island's potential to grow again. As I've said, I've seen a couple of downturns, but it always comes back. So I'm really, definitely enthusiastic that we're going to see better times ahead.
Thank you so much for joining us. You have been listening to Burning Issues with Kyle Jeremiah here on WSIA 88.9 FM. Stay with us. Enjoy the music.